Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Martin Dreyfus Show. Welcome back to our continued coverage of the Russia and Ukraine crisis. There's apparently a war declaration from Russia to somebody. I'm not sure if this means Putin's officially declaring war on Ukraine or if he's attacking another country. But either way, we need to know. So,
U.S. and Western officials say Vladimir Putin may move to formally declare war on Ukraine as soon as May 9th. CNN's Natasha Bertrand joins us live from Washington. Natasha, the Russian...
So, just so everyone knows, it's been a military operation. If you don't know, it's been considered a military operation, special. So let's see what this means. Let's see if it really affects anything.
The president is already at war, in fact, if not in name. What could he gain from this official declaration on this important symbolic day for Russian citizens?
Yeah, Christine. So May 9th is a very important day for Russia. It is known as Victory Day. It commemorates the day that the Russian forces defeated the Nazis. And U.S. officials, U.S. and Western officials have long believed that May 9th could be a day when the Russian president either announces some kind of major victory in Ukraine or a significant escalation. And they're honing in on one scenario, which is that he formally declares war on that day, which would then allow him to mobilize his reserve forces. The Russian forces in eastern Ukraine have been suffering a massive manpower shortage. So this would...
So the biggest and scariest part of him being able to mobilize his reserves is he's already declared a draft of 150,000 Russian civilians. So now he's not just putting his army and his soldiers at risk, he's starting to put his normal at-home citizens at risk, would be the goal behind this, I guess. Well, not his goal, but would be the logistics behind this.
Would allow the president to essentially conscript more forces into the fight and mobilize the general population there in Russia. This is also, of course, a major day of propaganda, so that it could also galvanize public opinion for the war by actually formally declaring that they are launching a war against the Nazis in Ukraine. Of course, this is a lie that we've heard Russia say repeatedly, that they're fighting a special military operation against Nazism in Ukraine. So this could be a moment when Vladimir Putin kind of seizes on this and takes this opportunity to...
But we already know that Vladimir Putin's lost the propaganda war. Sorry to cut her off. He's lost it. Besides his rural foundation at home, kind of like the end of Donald Trump's reign, when his approval ratings were the lowest, and there were very few people really siding with him for that moment in time. I know it's changed at this point, but at that time, he's kind of at the point where people with very little international access are really supporting him, and most people have that international access via Twitter, YouTube, etc., and that's going to be the harder part about him swaying this propaganda than his predecessors, Stalin, people like Adolf Hitler, Mussolini, and many more in the past.
To declare a formal war on Ukraine, kind of mobilize the reserve forces there that he needs in order to successfully fight this war in eastern Ukraine. Now, there are a number of other scenarios, including that he could annex certain territories in eastern Ukraine, including the Luhansk and Donetsk regions. But so far, what U.S. and Western officials are really watching for here is that formal declaration of war, which could be very significant, Christine.
All right, Natasha, thank you so much for setting that up for us. Let's bring in Vivian Salama, national security reporter for the Wall Street Journal. So nice to see you this morning. This is a war. It's been a war since the moment Russia invaded. But what would it mean for Ukraine if Putin formally declares war?
Also, I get what she's saying. It's been a war, and it has been a war. At first, though, I think you could argue it was a military operation, the way he operated and the way he pulled back and regrouped. I mean, you could make the argument. I just like to play devil's advocate.
For Ukrainians, it's not going to make that huge of a difference because of the fact...
That's honestly all I needed here. We can leave now.
fact that, in their opinion, not only have they been at war for the last almost 3 months, they've been at war for the last 8 years with Russia. And so they would tell you that it does not necessarily make that big of a difference as far as operations go, but as far as their campaign, their ongoing campaign to rally countries around the world to continue pouring aid into the country, to continue to convince those countries that this is a sustained threat, it's going to be a protracted war, and Vladimir Putin is not backing down anytime soon. Obviously, that goes to really support that argument that they've been making all along. And so,
So another argument with that is that going to escalate other countries entering the war, right? That's been my biggest worry. I've been very upfront about that. My biggest worry is it's going to a worldly level and the risk of it going to a worldly level due to the fact of the war crimes and the essentially peer pressure that citizens are placing on their officials. So sustained aid to Ukraine, formal declaration of war, split international economy. It seems like we're taking more and more steps towards the inevitable.
obviously, President Putin, pretty relentless in his campaign. He's been honing in on certain areas in Eastern Europe, and the Ukrainians say that this war has only just begun. And so, whatever rhetoric President Putin is going to be using on May 9th, it really does not change the dynamics of this war for them.
Yeah, Putin's words.
I think we got what we needed. I know there's another 3 minutes, but as we're learning with these videos, a lot of times they're going to go into other topics. Overall, we understand that in reality, this is important to an extent. It's gonna, to me, the biggest importance of the declaration of formal war is that they're gonna mobilize their citizens. They're gonna mobilize the 150,000 draftees, and all the people that didn't really want to go to war are now gonna have to go to war, even though they didn't even choose to be a part of the reserves. You know, if America had a draft and then sent all of us to war, there'd be a massive upheaval here, and there is a massive upheaval there. And as you see, to an extent, the officials just don't care. Other than that, the formal declaration is really not super significant outside of Russia. It's more of the same.